All right. Hello, everyone. We are here. I don't know if we are probably the only ones here right now. So, hello, world. Anyway, and if for those who are watching the replay, welcome. I'm Anne in Search of Wonder. This is Charlene, Coffee and a Book. I guess over here. I can't figure out which way the camera's reversing.
Yeah.
Anyways, hello, Jamie. She's here. And we are here to talk about fantasy, the genre of fantasy, which I know everybody's like, what? And because you don't even read fantasy. That is why Charlene is here. Because you have the whole book club, right? Which you're still doing that this year, right?
I'm not doing the book club. I set up a reading challenge instead because I just, between the book club and the Jane Austen read along last year, it was a lot of, I have to read this book every month. And I'm like, I need a break.
Yes.
So I just did a reading challenge, set up a reading challenge instead, but it's still all based around sci-fi and fantasy. So.
Right. Yeah. Dia's here. Hello.
Hi, Dia.
And Morgan. Hello. Hello, everybody. All right. So, Charlene, just educate me on fantasy. Because the truth is, it's just a genre that it doesn't appeal to me. Not like I think there's anything wrong with it or I hate it. I just, when I'm thinking of possible books to read, fantasy is kind of like, I don't know. I guess I just like realistic, maybe. Like I'm more drawn to like actual things. I really like historical fiction that has like a real setting, like a actual historical situation or scenario or whatever. So I think I'm just drawn to realistic fiction. But last year, I read more books with fantastical elements to them than I'd ever read before. And I enjoyed them. So it's not like I hate it. I'm definitely open to it. I just don't know much about what's out there and which sorts of fantasy I would probably like the best. So, but one thing I'm very curious about is I hear people talking about, I think they use the term high fantasy. Like, what does that mean? Tell me what that means. Because I don't know.
So there's high fantasy and low fantasy. So high fantasy is fantasy that takes place completely in a fictional world. So you could basically think of it as being in its own universe. Nothing in that world exists in our world. Obviously, a lot of things you might hear them talk about, maple trees or things that we have in our world. But the idea is that the world itself does not actually exist on Earth. Low fantasy takes place on Earth. And I would say like the fantasy part of it takes place on Earth or takes place on another world. Because you have some that cross over like Chronicles of Narnia, where it takes place in our world, but then there's a portal that goes to another world. So that one would still be high fantasy because Narnia is a fantastical world and that's what they travel to.
Right.
Our world is not.
Okay. So portal fantasy kind of like bridges the two, I guess, in a way. Like because you're starting in our world, but then you're going to another world.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously there's some way that you're able to travel. For the most part in Chronicles of Narnia, the idea is that the people who travel, they're chosen to travel like in The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe, they stumble upon the wardrobe. But for the most part, it's usually like they're just taken out of our world into Narnia. So it's not like, oh, there's this magical portal that you can always use. So there's not magic in our world because if you read later in the series, the wardrobe is connected to Narnia, not our world. So it's not so much that there's magic in our world. It's just that magic from Narnia has come to our world. That's how they can travel through the wardrobe. But Narnia is where the magic is, not our world.
Okay.
So I don't know what they would call it if it's like there's a magic portal that's always in our world and you can travel because now it's magical realism plus high fantasy. So I don't know how they classify that, but
yeah, all these subgenres. Would you include? I was thinking about this today. Any book that has like non-real world elements in it, does that fall under the umbrella of fantasy, like sci-fi, for example, or time travel kind of stuff, or are those separate genres?
Kind of. The
Yeah.
way I took a science fiction literature course in college. And
Oh, that's
so I
fun.
think the way that I've basically always heard it described is that science fiction, like if it takes place in a different place, science
Mm-hmm.
fiction is focused on the science and the technology,
Okay.
one or the other or both. So like there's an
Mm-hmm.
advancement in technology or there's an advancement in science or there's both. Fantasy is focused on there's a magical element. So like Star Wars
Okay.
is sci-fi because you have spaceships and you have laser guns and all of those kinds of things where they were technologically created.
Right.
Lord of the Rings is fantasy because you have fantastical creatures that don't exist in our world, but they're not aliens. They are native to that world.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have people like Gandalf who can actually use magic. And so it's not a technology thing. It's not like
Right.
he built his staff so it could do this. He just has this ability.
Yeah. That
So
makes
if that
sense.
helps, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So one is like theoretically, if the science were accurate, like it could be
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah.
Whereas fantasy, it's not because it's magical and completely
Right.
imaginative, right? With
So
no
like maybe
foundation.
somewhere in another universe,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere in another universe, maybe there is this magic, but in
Right.
reality.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. And I was also thinking about the Timeless series by Gabrielle Meyer, which I feel like is like it's time travel in a way, but it's not science fiction because she's not focused on any sort of like scientific way
Mhm.
of like there's not a machine that gets them and nobody's playing with science. It's just um very imaginative. And there are some rules that govern the time travel in those books. So in that way, it's kind of like a fantasy world or a magical world, but
Mhm.
it's very much set in the real world. And she even pulls in real historic characters into all of the books, etc. So I was pondering today. I was like, where would you put that? Like it time
Yeah.
travel, kind of, because they're like time crossers living in two different times at the same time. But it's kind of
Mhm.
fantastical in the sense that like it's completely unrealistic, but it's very much set in our world. So like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's in its own weird genre, I guess.
Yeah. Although I just saw Reed Brucey just commented, I would agree. I was thinking that that's probably what we call magical
Magical
realism.
realism. Yeah, that makes
So,
sense. Okay, I go with that. Because
so
that's a
magical
whole other
realism, yeah, magical realism is where basically the world plays out just like ours, except there's some sort of magical element that's just like it's a matter of fact, like it's there and nobody questions it,
right.
kind of thing.
Okay.
So, but usually it's something small. It's not. I mean, like in this case, it's one element. It's this time travel.
Okay.
It's not like our whole world suddenly looks magical. That would
Right.
be more of a low fantasy.
Yeah.
But it's just like
Okay.
this, these one or two elements that add magic to the world and everyone just accepts them like, oh, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So I guess some of the books that I read last year, of course, I can't think of specific titles right now, would fall more under that category of magical realism. Like there was one story, I can picture the cover, but I don't remember the name of the book. Um, and there was a house, and a woman who had lived in the house had died, and it was like her essence remained, and like there was a fragrance of roses everywhere when she was there. Like she was dead and she
mm,
was gone and she wasn't really there, but when she showed up
yeah.
it smelled like roses. And then whenever she was there, like things would happen, like pictures would get turned over or something would be moved
Mhm.
or something would be found. So I guess that would be magical realism.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
Because
It
things
was
that
it
I've
was
seen,
it was a
yeah,
good
I
book.
did
It
some
was okay. It
research
wasn't my
before.
favorite. What?
Yeah. I did some research ahead of
Yeah.
this video to make sure I try to have all of my terms
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, ghost stories tend to be a very common element with
Yeah.
magical realism. That,
Okay.
there's actually ghosts and they actually exist and people just accept it.
Yeah.
So,
There was another one that comes to mind whenever I think of magical realism, and that was The Snow Child. I don't know if you've
mhm.
ever read that one. It's like based on the
I
Russian
haven't, but
fairy
I've
tale.
heard of it.
Yeah, it's based on the Russian fairy tale where a snow creature turns into a real girl, but it's set in the real world, and the author doesn't. I don't know. It's like she's bridging the gap between what realistically could happen, and then this snowman turning into the girl. But at that point, it's not like people don't just. The difference, I guess, between that and magical realism in that book is that they don't accept it. Like there's this conflict of, are we just imagining it? Are we going crazy? Is it the fact that we want this girl so much that we're imagining her? And I'm not sure that ever gets resolved in that book, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I like things to fit into neat little categories,
right?
So that I can understand them. But not everything always fits into a category.
No, unfortunately.
Yeah. Dia says she's doing great on your reading challenge. Good job, Dia. And also, she says historical fiction doesn't do much for her. It's my favorite genre every year. Like, you know, the statistics. What do you read the most of? Classics and historical fiction, pretty much. Okay, I've always considered sci-fi type of fantasy. In fact, I think I saw it described as that on Type. Yeah, I guess I kind of always, I think they're often lumped together, like sci-fi fantasy, like almost like one big long term. But I see what you're saying about the.
There are similarities, but
yeah, because a lot of times
find ways of differentiating them. So
right, because a lot of times it is a whole world that's created in a sci-fi book that's different from our world.
And sometimes with sci-fi, like we're literally traveling from Earth to somewhere else in our solar system and things like that. So
right. And Dia says, I agree. Hello. Welcome. There isn't an entire magic system and magic isn't being wielded. That is magical realism. I can go with that. And Dia's saying hi to Sasha. Emma M. Line is another magical realism example. Yeah, she has, which in that one, it's really subtle. Like there's that ghosty character. I forget who it is. Somebody will tell me who it is, but I can't remember character names. But there's that like ghost-like character, and then there are the things that get lost, but they turn up in that shop, which also I forget the name of that shop. Yeah, it does have a few magical realism elements, which is really fun. In some bookstores, I see sci-fi and fantasy shelved as speculative fiction together. Okay, interesting. I mean, I guess I could see that. I sort of feel like speculative is a whole other thing, though. I knew somebody would tell me. The Roman, yes, that's who it is. I knew somebody would know. Thank you, Jamie. Speculation is a subgenre of fantasy. Okay, so not an umbrella genre, but a subgenre. Yeah, I would. That's how I see it myself. I don't know what you think.
I don't know. I hear the term speculative fiction, and I basically see it as any kind of fiction that speculates on what if this.
Right.
Which a lot of fantasy and sci-fi falls into.
Right. So. That's true. Yeah. But I don't think it always has to have fantastical elements, though, does it?
Mm-mm. Because I feel like fantasy I've read that has almost no magic in it.
Yeah.
So, no mythical creatures.
She says sci-fi.
Sci-fi is a lot more speculative, especially in the philosophical sense.
Yes.
So
yeah. So what would be what are your favorite? Let's start with that. Your favorite books in the different types of fantasy, like high fantasy, low fantasy, portal fantasy.
Okay.
Or any other. Any of the genres we have discussed. What are your favorites?
Well, an obvious one in high and epic fantasy is Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
So, I mean,
which I haven't
the most
read.
Obvious, but yeah. Also, because I know you said something about subgenres, so since I said epic fantasy, the way I understood it is epic fantasy is fantasy in which whether the protagonist succeeds or fails, basically has repercussions on the entire world.
Oh.
Is the easiest way to look at that. So like
Okay.
this is epic fantasy, but The Hobbit is not.
Okay.
Because really it mostly just affects the dwarves. Do they get
Right.
to go back to Dale or what?
Right.
So it affects parts of the world, but it definitely doesn't affect the whole world, whereas Lord of the Rings does.
Okay.
Does
Oh,
the ring get
that's
destroyed, or
a
does
good
Sauron
distinction.
come back to power? So that I always consider that my favorite fantasy series. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot. So
That's okay. We have all night.
and there's a lot of subgenres that I don't read or don't really
Yeah.
read, like romantasy. I don't.
Oh yeah.
I've read the Remnant Chronicles. That's as close as I've gotten because
I
the
have.
romance is a bigger plot line than anything else in the
Yeah.
story.
The only thing I've read that I think can fall into the category of romantasy is that YA series about the gods. Divine Rivals was the first one.
Okay.
Divine Rivals and I forget the second one. Anyway,
Yeah.
I've read those too. What?
Yeah, I haven't read. I said I know the series, but now I can't remember the book.
I liked the writing. I liked the writing of it. It was good. They weren't like, my favorite books ever, but they were good.
Yeah.
So what else you got there?
Okay. So this one I feel like slightly blends sci-fi and fantasy. So, but it's The Aeronauts Windlass by Jim Butcher.
Okay.
I know it's hard to see the title because it's all shiny. There we go.
Yeah, that's a cool cover.
I've seen it classified as steampunk.
Oh.
But it actually has a little more futuristic feel than steampunk usually does.
Okay.
But there are airships and that kind of stuff, but they also power things through something that they call ether. And the people who work with the ether become extremely eccentric, is a nice way of putting it. They become
okay.
But they use it to make ether silk, which is what they use to make sails out of to fly their ships. And so like the ships are designed like ships you would see on the sea in like the 1700s, not the airships that are big balloons like you would see a lot of times in steampunk. So, and this is very much a strange cast of characters that gets thrown together to try to figure things out, because there are problems on these spires that they live on that hang up in the air. Like nobody lives on the ground. So they're all up in the air, and the spires fight against each other. So yeah.
Interesting. That sounds really intriguing, actually.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that as I started looking through, because you were like, list out some of your favorite books and things that you like in them. And I went, apparently I like books where it's like, ooh, this is unique and different.
Yes. Well, yeah, me too. Me
too.
That's why I really like the Timeless series. For me, the concept was like, and I think a lot of people, it was just so unusual. It's such a unique idea. That's half of the fun of it. Like nobody else is writing a story like this. It's really cool. So that's what's interesting about that one. I guess that one, do you think that would be like speculative in a way? Like, I feel like that's a speculative.
It kind of is a little bit. And honestly, it's one of those series where I'm trying to figure out, is this set in the future on Earth, or is this actually set in a fictional world?
And if it,
because the fact that like they're above the ground, you don't actually see their planet basically.
Right.
So like you don't know what any of that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it could very well be set like, 200-300 years in the future for all we know. So, or for all I know. And there's only 2 books out in the series right now. So, and I don't know how many there's going to be.
Yeah. That sounds fun.
Yeah. And then this was probably a good one if you kind of wanted to get into fantasy a little bit, because this one's YA. But the first book is Spellslinger, and it's by Sebastian de Castell, who also wrote Trader's Blade. This is the first book, the Greatcoat series. I haven't read that one yet, but that's his adult series. And but this one follows a boy who he's studying magic like everybody else in his town. The only thing is he's faking it. He can't actually use magic. Like everybody else can, he actually cannot. And so eventually he gets found out, and then there's different things that he's trying to figure out. Like a lady comes in who's from outside of the village, and she's making claims about, there's things that you guys do that are wrong, and why do you do things this way? And he's like, I thought I knew everything, and I thought everything was exactly the way it should be, and now I'm questioning everything. So I've read this one twice. I had to reread it because I went too long without reading the second book, and I still haven't read the second book, but the first book is a lot of fun.
Okay, that does sound fun.
And there ends up being an animal companion, which is always fun too.
That is fun.
So, then this is actually the second book in a series because I loaned out the first one. So This is by Amy Alward, and it's actually indie published. Okay. But the first book is called Immolation. And one of the great things about this book, first of all, the main character is in her early 40s. So we have an older protagonist.
That's cool. Yeah.
But one thing that's really good about it is that you learn more about the world the further you get into the book. So it's not like in the beginning, there's definitely some of, I don't know exactly where we are and I'm figuring things out. But the world feels bigger and bigger the further into the book you get, instead of just dumping you in the middle of this vast world that you have to figure out. Mm-hmm. So like characters slowly get added in. You slowly learn more things about the world. By the time you get to the end of the book, the world feels twice as big as it did at the beginning.
Interesting.
But you get to grow with it.
Right.
So
that really makes sense, because sometimes it can be hard to jump into a world and try to understand it all at once. I
read Way of Kings, and I'm like, this just drops you in and you have to figure out how everything in the world works. Right from the beginning. Like nothing makes sense. Yeah. And the way it starts, you're trying to figure out kind of like the geography and, everything like that. But you start in the middle of this small village that I believe is on an island. Okay. And so, you have a small village of people, only a few characters that you really have to keep track of. And then people from outside come in and you're trying to figure out who they are. But then the character starts traveling, and then you start figuring out how big the world is and how different things work. So, yeah. It's definitely a lot more approachable than.
Yeah. I feel like that children's series. Oh my goodness. You guys, my memory is terrible, and I cannot remember titles, authors, characters, place names. Okay. It's a children's series by a Christian author. Pretty sure the guy also writes music.
Wingfeather Saga.
Yes.
Is it Wingfeather? Andrew Peterson?
Yes. Him. That one. I don't remember.
The first book is what's the name of the first book? In the Dark Under the Dark Sea of Darkness or something like that. It's a really long title.
Yes.
I have the first book, but I haven't read it.
I've read the first book in that series. And then my son and I kind of buddy read that one. And then he loved it so much, he went on and read the rest of the series. I never did read the rest of the series, and he loved the whole series. But I feel like that one did that as well. It starts with this family in this small area, but then in their little village, and then you gradually expand more to the town, and then you don't really get to the real part of the story. It builds into it, and then you meet the other characters, but they're in another area. Anyway, yeah, I feel like it's the same. Yeah, that's a lot easier than to jump in. Yeah. Let me catch up on comments here a little bit. There's quite a few. Lydia says, is supernatural another subgenre? That's what I generally think of when I encounter ghosts. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, ghosts can kind of fall into that, and I don't know. There's times where it's like they can be part of two different genres.
Mm-hmm.
Subgenres.
Right. Sometimes
I think it partially depends on how you want to classify it, or if there's other supernatural elements, then it might be more supernatural and not so much magical realism. So,
right.
Yeah, and then it gets into very gray areas.
Yes. Yeah. Some things are hard to put in a box, that's for sure. Jamie says, see, I think even biblical fiction falls under speculative fiction. I mean, I get that, because you're speculating because there's a lot we don't know.
Especially if you're writing about actual people from the Bible.
Right. Yeah.
The ones where you're following fictional characters doesn't feel quite as speculative. It might still be, but it doesn't feel as much so, because they're made up characters.
Yeah.
But I read Iscariot by Tosca Lee. That feels much more speculative than some of the others I've read.
Yeah. Well, because we know very little about Judas Iscariot. So
Yeah.
anything you write about him is going to be, I mean, we know what the Bible says, obviously, but nothing more than that. The Fantastical Truth podcast talks a lot about this. They have a whole episode on speculative fiction. Oh, that sounds interesting. Also, what is this podcast? I have not heard of this podcast.
Right.
Tell me more. I thought of The Snow Child as a fairy tale folktale. I'm no fantasy expert, so not sure if those are subgenres or not. It's definitely based on a fairy tale, but she's not telling it as a fairy tale. She's setting it in a real place in Alaska. And I think that's where it crosses the line into like magical realism, because she's setting it in a real place in Alaska with real people and situations and scenarios that are very realistic. I mean, I guess like a fairy tale, like theoretically it's a Russian fairy tale, and so technically I guess it's set in Russia, but I don't know, that one's very much a fairy tale. This one, it feels like either it really happened and it's supposed to be real, or they're losing their minds. is like what you feel like in the story.
Right. Yeah, and fairy tale / fairy tale retelling are other subgenres of fantasy.
Yes.
So there are some books that have very much a fairy tale feel. Like I think of The Princess Bride.
Yes.
Kind of feels like a silly fairy tale, but it feels like a fairy tale. Howl's Moving Castle is based on fairy tale tropes. So it very much fits the same way. But then obviously you have ones that are literally based on an actual fairy tale, you know, to whatever extent it's actually taking influence. But
yeah. And there are fairy tale retellings that retain the fairy tale, like whole fairy tale element. And then there are others that tell the basic storyline, but in a realistic way. And I feel like The Snow Child kind of like does both. it's like a blend of those. That book kind of reminds me of Lindsay Llewellyn's Harlow Morgan and The Sky City. It's middle grade steampunk with flying ships. Oh, the Aeronauts book I think you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to say also the Aeronauts Win Less. It is adult, but I will be honest, I had to double check when I started reading it because the writing style is much more accessible, like YA. Like it's not a dense read at all. So it's a lot easier to get through.
That's good.
Yes, on the dark edge of the dark.
Morgan helping us out. On the edge. See, that's such a long title, On the Edge of the Dark
Sea.
It
is. And I know dark is in there twice.
Yes. It's a great title, but it's hard to remember, especially for someone like me who remembers nothing. It is the first Wing Feather. Oh, see, you were right. Wing Feather Saga. I always confuse the Wing Feather Saga with a secular series about dragons.
Is it Dragon's Wing?
Maybe.
Is that
my older son
I know I've seen it. I've at least seen the graphic novels of it.
Yeah, my older son read a lot of the Dragon series, and I cannot remember the name of it. But I always mix up, for some reason, I don't know why, I always mix up Wing Feather Saga with that book and that series. And I always have to double check what people are talking about, which one. Yes, thank you, Jamie, helping me out here. The Fantastical Truth podcast talks all things fantasy and sci-fi from a Christian perspective. Oh, that'd be interesting. Do they talk about like specific books at a time, like book reviews, or just general conversation? Either way, that sounds really interesting. Dia says, I wonder if you would get along with Naomi Novak's Spinning Silver. I have heard about that one. I've heard people talk about that one. Historical portal, fairy tale. I like the historical part.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wings of Fire, and that's why I mixed them up, because they both have wing. I know there's wing in the title. They both have wing. That's why I mixed them up. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. My poor brain.
I started Spinning Silver. My only problem is there ended up being a character who was basically getting power assistance, whatever you want to call it, from a demon. And unfortunately, that is one of those things that I personally can't read.
Yeah.
It gives me anxiety, something terrible.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to finish it, but like up until that point, I was loving the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like her books. I really liked Uprooted. This is the Temeraire series. His Majesty's Dragon is the first book. So this one's actually historical fantasy. So
Okay.
this takes place during the Napoleonic Wars. And for the most part, things, from what I've seen so far, things play out the way they did in history. The only difference is there's dragons in this one.
Okay.
So you have dragon riders and all of that. Although these dragons are massive, so don't think How to Train Your Dragon size
Okay.
dragons. But one of the things I thought about with this book is that it's set in the late 17, early 1800s,
Okay.
and it reads to me more like it was written during that time.
Okay.
Like that's how it feels to me, because I'm like,
Yeah.
it definitely feels like more of a slower read, like the language that she uses and everything. It feels more like a classic novel or a classic fantasy novel, if you will.
Yeah.
So this is one that I'm like, if you are someone who reads a lot of classics, you'll probably get along with the language in this book
Yeah.
a lot better
Well,
than
that
some
all
other
of that
fantasy
sounds
books.
very
So,
appealing to me, so I'm going to put that on my Goodreads.
yeah.
So, and that's the same author
And then when
that
it leaves,
you just mentioned.
yeah.
Very cool.
And that's one where it's like, there's not a ton of fantasy to it. It's just, we have dragons now.
Yeah.
So, and how that kind of affects the politics and stuff. Like I said, the war itself seems to play out in the same way that it did back then. Whichever side won a battle wins it in this book.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that now we see how the dragons would influence that instead of just the people.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that reminds me of, I think very different, like, tones to the book, settings and whatever. Mm-hmm. The series by Christina Bear, which I haven't read. I found this is like the fourth book in this series. I found this really fantastic copy at a thrift store for like $1, and I have the first one on my Kindle. So eventually I want to read them. But yeah, that's like, it's like real world historic, but it has dragons. But I think this one is more like, it's not like dramatic, classic, that epic kind of thing that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's more just fun, light reading. I think. I don't know. I've never read it.
And it's not so much like, it's a super epic story or anything. It's just like the writing style reminds me more of like the writing style of people from the 1800s than it does today.
Yes. So. Which I love that, of course. So we've got, about the podcast. They do both. They have discussions and do book reviews and author interviews. Well, that's cool. I'll have to look that up. Not that I have much time to listen to podcasts. What about Uprooted? I'm curious about it, but the opinions are fairly split. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That one I really enjoyed. The part I find funny with that one is how many people say this isn't a fairy tale retelling. And I read through it and I went, this is totally a Beauty and the Beast retelling. How did you miss that?
Interesting.
Because the whole thing is that they have a guy that's called the Dragon. He is a guy, but that's what he's called. And I don't know if it's every year or every few years, he selects a girl from the village and she goes to his castle to live with him. And that's where you get the Beauty and the Beast part. So the main character ends up being chosen and she's taken to his castle. And basically she takes care of the place, keeps it all cleaned up, fixes the meals, all that kind of stuff. But she personally starts branching out because she's like, there's got to be other things going on. And so the story kind of goes on from there. There's a lot of the details I don't remember anymore, but I remember really enjoying reading it. But yeah, I know it's one of those, like, some people love it and some people don't.
Yeah.
I fell on the end of I loved it, but.
Who is the author of that one?
That's Naomi Novik also.
Oh, Naomi Novik. Okay.
Same as Spinning Silver and Temeraire.
Gotcha. I read a book, Pride and Prejudice, with dragons. It was bad. That's hilarious.
Which is sad.
I did read
it feels like add dragons, it should get better.
Yeah. I read a very interesting Pride and Prejudice last year, like a retelling that had a magical element to it. It wasn't super well written, but I loved the idea of it. And after I got to a certain point, I kind of like read the rest, and I like how she played with the idea. So what happened was this. Caroline Bingley found a fairy to give her the power to change bodies with Lizzie Bennet. So they all ended up at Pemberley. And so, like, because Caroline Bingley knew that Mr. Darcy was interested in Lizzie, and so she wanted all that attention for herself. So she had this like fairy power to change their bodies. And so then it kind of explored the question of what is a person attracted to? Like your physical appearance, is it just your physical appearance, or is it your character and your the way you interact, and that kind of stuff, your personality, etc. And I really like how, like, that part she actually did really well. She did a really good job of exploring that aspect and of just showing how it really confused Mr. Darcy when he thought he was interacting with Lizzie Bennet, but it was really Caroline Bingley, and she was, straight up snobbish and rude, all of the things that Caroline Bingley is, but it was Lizzie Bennet's face and body. And so I thought it was really interesting. So it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't also like 5-star amazing book everybody should read. It was just it was fun. Tooth and Claw. What is that in reference to, Dia? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought with that one.
Doctor Who, so.
Yeah. Yes, Jamie, me too. So whenever you decide to, I have it on my Kindle. We can buddy read it because I
have the first book on Kindle, but yeah, I don't have the rest of them.
Yeah, same. I have it on Kindle. Wormwood is a YA. Yeah, so it's not as deep. Lots of growing up, falling in love, dealing with moral issues in Ormdale. Yeah, which is why besides the fact that it's fantasy, I don't love YA because I don't love it when there's a lot of like those things in it. But at the same time, everybody keeps talking about it, so I have a little bit of FOMO. I think I just want to read it and find out if I like it or not. The idea of PMP with dragons could have been good, but it wasn't well executed, and it had modern elements that Jane would never have had in her story. See, I hate when the authors do that.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. If it was a HR. Oh, she finished it over here. Okay. So what? If it was a Christian, it would have been better. Gotcha. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going there. If Tooth and Claw, that's what somebody said, Tooth and Claw. That was the name of the book. Okay. They was asking if that was the name of the book. If Tooth and Claw is the retelling of PMP, I read it and loved it, but I didn't read it as a retelling, just dragons in a Regency time period. There are no humans. Oh, interesting.
Okay. That's not what I expected.
Yeah, me either. See, I don't think that I would like that though. Like, dragons in a story is one thing, but like only dragons and no people, or only animals and no people. Like there's a cozy mystery everybody's talking about series that's like set
Shady
with
Hollow.
Like with woodland animals and stuff. And I'm like, a cozy mystery, sure, but only animals, no. I can't do that. Yeah. If it was a Christian book, yeah, I read that one. No, that wasn't it. Okay, so a different one. So there's more than one dragon, Pride and Prejudice.
Right.
That's hilarious. I haven't even read the zombie one, which was really popular.
No, I'm not going to read that one.
Yeah. I'm not really into zombies, and I guess that would fall into that would be
supernatural.
Yeah.
Supernatural, paranormal. One of those.
Vampires, I guess, would go in that too. In that mix.
Vampires, werewolves, witches, all that stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's
that phase, and I'm never going back.
Yes. I read Dracula, and I really liked that one. Dracula was really good. And then earlier this year, Molly and I, buddy, read another book about Dracula, but it was like not really a retelling, kind of like backstory, but then a post story. Kind of hard to explain. Forget what it was called, of course. And it was pretty good. It wasn't as good as Dracula, but it was good. But I haven't ventured beyond Dracula. I have this, I think you've probably seen it before, this book that I accidentally got, which is a Scarlet Pimpernel retelling, but with vampires.
Yeah.
I had no idea that there were vampires involved when I bought it.
Yeah.
And I'm just
I
curious.
think it was one that when I saw the cover, I wanted to get it, and then I read the synopsis and went, never mind.
Yeah, I know. Like vampires and Scarlet Pimpernel. Okay, but now I'm curious enough that I kind of just want to read it. But it's on my stack of books that either I read or I get rid of this year. And it's April now and I haven't read it yet, so who knows? All right, so Dia says dragons that talk and wear jewels and have hierarchy and social norms. That's funny. So, I mean, what kind of, I mean, I guess that's just straight up fantasy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon world.
I don't know if I call that historical fantasy or not, since it's supposed to be a Regency era, but now all the people are dragons.
Right. Yeah. Yet another subgenre we have uncovered.
Right? Fantasy with dragons. That's what that is.
Yeah. All right. Did you have more in your stack of recommendations?
Obviously talking about one of the big ones. Because you can't talk about fantasy and not talk about Harry Potter.
Yes.
So this one is low fantasy and urban fantasy.
Okay.
So urban fantasy, the main reason I would go ahead and say urban fantasy is because there are parts of it that take place in London.
Okay.
But typically urban fantasy is a fantasy that takes place in a metropolitan area.
Okay.
Specifically. So like the Shadowhunter series by Cassandra Clare is considered urban fantasy. It's also considered paranormal. So
okay.
A lot of times you can have books that fall into multiple subcategories, but
yeah.
But yeah, I've been buying the interactive editions of these books so that when my kids are a little bit older, I can read those with them, because that will probably keep their attention a little better than just sitting and listening to me read the book. So
what is the interactive edition?
It's is it Mina Lima? I can't remember who. It was the one who originally did the illustrated editions as well.
Okay.
But the interactive editions, my computer's sitting on it. My computer's going to drop for a second because you're sitting on a stack of books.
Nice.
It's all my stuff for homeschool for next year. So I have Beauty and the Beast in the same type edition. But basically it comes with, there's a little fold out here that's a letter and, whoops, and I'm dropping stuff out of it. But, and losing my microphone. That's not going to help. But yeah, it comes with different interactive stuff that, the kids can do with that. So it may have things that spin or whatever, but but yeah, the idea is there's little things that they can interact with as they listen to the story. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I got that because we're going to be doing fairy tales next year for school. So
fun. That's really cool.
I thought that would be a fun one to do.
Yeah. Both my boys have read all of the Harry Potter books multiple times. They love it. And that is one.
I think I've read the whole series 3 times.
Yeah.
So
my younger son. Yeah, my younger son, if he starts them, he won't be able to stop. He'll read the first one, and you'll find him everywhere, lying around the house reading it, and then he'll read the next one, and then until he's done with the series. So they definitely love it. Comes highly recommended from my children. I just haven't ever read it.
Yeah.
No particular reason. I just never have.
Yeah, and my husband's not a reader, so me and his mom and both of his siblings had all read the books and watched the movies. His dad had watched all the movies, even though his dad was like, I know nothing about Harry Potter for years.
Yeah.
And so my husband was like, I feel like I at least need to watch the movies so I can be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I got him the movies one year for Christmas, and now every time he goes through and he's like, okay, let's do a marathon of the movies. We get done with the movies. I'm like, and now I want to read the books because there's so much missing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't reread it every time, but I want to every time.
Right. Yes. I can understand that. Jamie says it's called Mrs. Bennet's Dragon. Mrs. Bennet's Dragon.
Right.
Appropriate. Yay, I love Harry Potter. Mina Lima editions are beautiful. Yes, I agree.
They are.
That is very cool. Love Mina Lima editions. I read Sorcerer's Stone in that copy last year, and it was a lot of fun. Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
I'm trying not to open them up and mess with anything, so everything's still in good condition when I read them to the kids.
Yes. I didn't realize they had so many, actually. I didn't know there were so many
Yeah.
movies. That edition of Alice in Wonderland made me like the story. I tried it several times before and couldn't get on board. I just
It
found
is
it.
weird.
I loved the way Lewis Carroll played with words in that story. And I'm a word girl, so I love language. And so like that's one reason why I love Charles Dickens. Honestly, I don't really care too much like the plots, the characters, whatever, they're fine. They don't really stick with me that much. I just really love how he uses the English language and his command of it and the way he writes. And ironically, I know that a lot of people, that's what they dislike about Dickens is his prose. But I love his prose. It's my favorite part about his books. And so when in Lewis Carroll, it's a different way because he's doing something very different. But he's also playing with words a lot. There's so much wordplay in those books. And that's primarily what I got out of it. Like, I think there's a lot of like symbolism and metaphors. I wasn't really paying too much attention. I was just enjoying the wordplay throughout this story. I thought it was fun.
Yeah. And I've heard things about like, there was basically like some of it was commentary on political things of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I feel like I need to go back and reread it just to try to find those things. But then I also heard someone point out that like he was a mathematician. And so like the main place I've heard it referenced is the Mad Tea Party.
Yes.
And they have comments about time and this kind of stuff. And apparently there's mathematical references in there. And I'm like, well, it goes right over my head.
Yeah.
Like,
well, actually,
I didn't study that kind of math.
I didn't either. But now that you mention it, there's like that whole like, actually, yeah, I can see that. Like the whole, especially in Through the Looking Glass, like there's a whole mathematical setup as to how she goes around to the different things that she does in there. There's like a whole geometrical like setup there. I can't describe it now because it's been a little while since I read it. But
I reread Alice's Adventures in Wonderland recently, but not Through the Looking Glass. So it's been a while since I read that one too.
Yeah. Okay. Now that's really interesting because I can totally see that now. And I'm not a math person either, but it would be interesting to go then and read it from that perspective as well.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that's another one that's like kind of fantasy. What would you call like portal fantasy? Because she kind of goes through a portal, right? Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah, it would be more of a portal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because first it's down the rabbit hole and then it's through the Looking Glass.
Yes. Yeah. I discovered, I guess it's been, I don't know how long it's been now, 10 to 15 years or whatever. Someone in England wrote and choreographed a new ballet for Alice in Wonderland that is really, really, really cool. And like you can see clips of it online. I don't think the whole thing is available anywhere. And I don't know if anybody is performing it. A lot of times there's a different version of Alice in Wonderland when the ballet is like, and I know when it comes to my area, it's a different one. Or when like, local little ballet troupes do it. But one of these days I want to see that one because it's so cool. The Mad Hatter one, the Tea Party, the guy, the Mad Hatter, he does a tap dance, which I don't know much about ballet, but reading the comments of the video and everything, people said that like tap dance is like a completely different skill set from ballet. I think probably because you're always flat on your feet and not like on the tips of your feet. And that most elite ballet dancers, like tap dancing is the opposite of what they do. And so for a ballet dancer to be able to effectively tap dance is like apparently super impressive. And it is that may be why the ballet is not performed very often. But it's a really, 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 really cool dance and such a great visual representation of that whole scene. It's so fun. I love it. So if anybody wants to go look that up on YouTube, it's a lot of fun. Jamie says she's read Harry Potter 2 or 3 times through. I should read Phantom Toll Booth if you enjoy wordplay. It's middle grade and is a portal. Oh, I should. I actually, that's one that I do want to read. My another book both of my children read. That was a book they read at school in elementary school. But yeah, I should read that one. Actually, I think both of my children have copies of it. So right on
and
hand.
actually, she says that there's a couple others I thought of, unfortunately, all the way on my shelf, and I can't get to them because I've got piles of books in between me and it.
Yeah.
But there's, oh gosh, now I can't remember it's by Michelle Faber. I'm assuming that's how you say it. It's Michel.
Okay.
It's A Tale of Two Worlds.
Okay.
But it's basically, the story is, at some point, for whatever reason, the letter D goes missing.
Oh.
And so like you have all these words written out, and if there's supposed to be a letter D, it's just not there.
Okay.
And then I think the character ends up going into another world or something like that. I can't remember. It's been too long since I read it. And there's things in the story that are a play on Dickens.
Okay.
The whole story. Like, the only one that I caught the first time I read it was that there was a bleak house.
Okay.
But beyond that, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I listened to it on audio and I went, I clearly need to just actually physically read this book because I missed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that does seem like a book that would be. That's cool. That reminds me of Elaminoki, where like all the letters of the alphabet go missing. Which was fun. That was a fun read.
Yeah. Why am I blanking on the title of the other one? I can't even see it from here. It's basically the story of the Glasstown game. That's what it's called. Because the Bronte siblings all came up with Glasstown. Right. And so in this book you have, it's the three Bronte sisters and Branwell all end up going on this train, and they end up going to Glasstown. Okay. And they actually get to like live in it, and they see like, these characters that they created, and everything that's going on, the wars that are being fought. There is a ton of wordplay in the book. Yeah. Which I'm like, I enjoyed it, but I would have enjoyed it more as a kid because I loved wordplay even more back then. Right. I get kind of burnt out on puns and stuff nowadays. Yeah. But yeah, if you like wordplay, that one has a lot of wordplay in it. So
I actually checked that one out of the library once. I feel like there was like a Bronte readathon or something I was doing, and it was on my potential TBR. But I didn't get around to it. But yeah, I do still want to read it. It's good to know that you recommend it because I hadn't heard really anybody talk about it. I didn't know, and not anybody I knew had read it. So, okay, that's good. I'll put it back on my list. I actually was thinking about organizing a Bronte readathon at some point. I know somebody had one earlier this year and I missed it. Because I would love to read more Bronte and Bronte related stuff, like not just the Brontes, but let's see. A read along of the Phantom Toll Booth. I like it. We should do that. We've planned multiple. We've planned multiple buddy reads and read-alongs here. What was the other one? Okay, now my memory is terrible. We said another one earlier. That two or three of us had it on our Kindle. Oh yeah, the Christina Bear. Yes, yes, yes. A Bronte readathon. Yes, please. Yes, because I have this list of like all the Bronte that I want to read, and I've read all of their main books. I haven't finished reading their poetry. But I also have like their letters. I have a book of their letters that I want to read. And I have the father and the brother wrote poetry as well, which you can find. And also Miriam gave me a copy of the Juvenilia, like the Glasstown, all of that stuff, which I've read one small portion of that. But I want to read, it's like a whole Oxford classic collection of their Juvenilia. And so anyway, yeah, all that stuff I want to read. Plus any like Bronte related. I have some Bronte fictional biographies. I've got all kinds of Bronte stuff I want to read.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Kingdom of Back by Lou is another. Oh, that's one of your recommendations. That one intrigues me. File.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about it.
So this one follows Mozart's older sister. She's the main character in this book. And like the Bronte siblings, she and her brother, on their long trips across Europe to all the different places where they were performing, they came up with the Kingdom of Back. And it was a fantastical world. And one of the servants, they even got him to draw them a picture of what the world looked like. And so this book basically follows if that world actually existed. They weren't just making it up. And honestly, she did a fantastic job of making the things in the Kingdom of Back line up with what was happening in the real world. Because like obviously Mozart dealt with sickness and stuff all of his life. Right. And so the way that she follows the different things in their lives and how that plays out in the Kingdom of Back as well, it was really well done. The funny part is I feel like I've heard a couple of people say they didn't like this book and a couple of people say they loved it, including me.
Yeah.
And the main connection I found is people with a musical background love this book and people without a musical background don't like it.
Okay.
So I don't know if it has to do with something, like we know more about Mozart and so we end up really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Or what the reason is, but so far that's the correlation I've noticed, but I haven't heard a ton of people talk about it. So
yeah.
But I loved it. So
yeah. That does sound I've heard people talk about that. And I have heard people say they loved it and they didn't love it. So I've been intrigued.
Like Elliot Brooks, because like I know Elliot Brooks loved it and she plays violin.
Okay.
Chantel, I think, was one that didn't like it, and I know she doesn't have a musical background. So
right.
I'm like,
yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
So knowing you have a musical background, there's a better chance you'll like it.
You better chance you like it. Well, Dia says it's good. I think Dia is musical. How much musical background would you need? Dia says none.
Yeah, you don't need any to actually read it. Like I said, that's the correlation I noticed. It doesn't mean that if you aren't musical or don't have a musical background, you won't enjoy it. That's just the correlation I noticed. So
yeah. But maybe just an understanding of who Mozart was and because his life was very unusual. And he was an unusual person.
His was very musical, but being a girl, she wasn't promoted the way that he was.
Right.
So,
yeah. That'll be very interesting. I was going to say something about that. Oh, I was going to say, it's interesting. Mozart and his sister, like they really had like told those stories, right? About like that comes from a realistic like thing they actually did, right?
Yeah, I found that out in the author's note. I didn't know it when I read it.
And I think I've heard of that before. And also the Bronte siblings did as well. And I learned recently that C.S. Lewis and his brother did as well. They had like a world that they created. I don't know much about that one, but I just read about it recently. I think it's so interesting.
From the Mythmakers.
Yes, yeah.
The novel.
I think I read about it in the Patty Callahan's book.
Okay. Once Upon a Wardrobe.
Once Upon a Wardrobe, yes.
I still need to read that one.
It was pretty good. That one was like talk about crossing genres. Like it was it was hard to pinpoint for me, which honestly I was like, it made it a little bit difficult for me to enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie, but that was a me thing. It doesn't mean the book was bad. I was like, is this literary analysis? Because I felt like part of it was a literary analysis of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It was part fictional biography of C.S. Lewis because some chapters were devoted to like him recounting his history. And he was like a character in the story. And then part of it was like a story about a girl and her brother and trying to save his life because he had a heart condition. And part of it was about just like, and which this part, of course I loved, about the importance of stories in your life, the healing power of stories. And the main character, the girl, she was like very, very logic, very science-based, and like, stories, fiction, that's for, other people. I don't need that. I've got facts. But it was exploring the idea of, how much you need stories and imagination in your life. So it was like a blend of a lot of different things, and I had a hard time pinpointing it, which took away from my enjoyment of it, which really probably shouldn't, but it did.
No.
But I learned about some things about C.S. Lewis in the process, so that was good. Yeah. Dia says she doesn't have much of a musical background, and she loved it. So Sasha says, I'm on board. Boxing, yes. Thank you. See, I knew Morgan would know. Morgan would know. It's a really cute story as long as you're taking into account that it was written by tiny children. Boxen is what you mean? Is it like published? Is like can you actually read a version that they wrote?
Right.
I mean that's same with the Brontes. Like, well, also you
Mm-hmm.
have to keep in mind that they were not only children but adolescents and even into their young adulthood they wrote it. And
Yeah.
so their juvenile fiction has actually kind of adult themes in it sometimes. It was like adultery and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
going on in their stories. So, oh, okay. She says they cannot spell. Well,
Oh,
you know.
okay.
Well, thankfully, at some point he learned. Either that or
Right.
he had good editors. Well,
But
that's
assume if he worked at Oxford, he learned.
I would assume. I would assume he had to get that figured out at some point. Well, like Jane Austen, I mean, I guess that was back then. They didn't have some of the standardized spelling that we have now. But yeah, her spelling wasn't that great either.
Yeah.
It's a collection of stories set in the world Lewis and his brother created. That's so cool. Jamie says, I did not care much for Becoming Mrs. Lewis by Patty Callahan. I still wanted to try Once Upon a Wardrobe, though. So I have Becoming Mrs. Lewis, and I haven't read it, but I've also heard things about it. I think that the real story is just honestly a little iffy, which is like reality was iffy. So
Yeah.
that's a drawback there. Morgan says, I feel like it was published not too long ago. Okay. So that's cool. Yeah, I think people debate about, whether authors' juvenilia should be published because, obviously they never intended for audiences to read it. And I guess it's a question worth asking, but at the same time, I want to read it.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie.
That's the hard part. Is it's like I want to respect your privacy, but I also want to read it.
Right, and I want to read your letters too. So yeah, I get why. There's moral, ethical questions around it. But at the same time, like, if they are long gone and all of their family that cares is long gone and all of the descendants barely, don't know them any better than the rest of us know them, like, at that point, does it really matter anymore? I guess is my thought. But I was going to say, like, these children, like, back then in the 1800s, early 1900s, and Mozart even later, or even earlier, were creating basically fantasy worlds and
Yeah.
fantasy stories like of their own, even before that was a popular genre. I mean, there have always been stories with fantastical elements in them, like fairy tales, obviously, or that sort of thing. But as a genre, yeah, I think it's more recent.
Yeah.
So I just think that's interesting that those like children were obviously creating fantasy stories like way back in the day, hundreds of years ago, probably even longer. It's just not recorded.
Yeah.
So it just seems to be a natural human tendency to just to imagine a world very different from the one we actually live in, and just to wonder what it would be like to live in that world. Which was another thing that I've also been pondering, like thinking about talking about fantasy, is how I feel like it has exploded in popularity since I was a teenager. Like when I was a teenager, I think, or a young, like preteen, when Harry Potter first came out, I want to say. I just feel like since then, the fantasy genre has just exploded. And now, like, my sons, when they choose to read a book, 95% of the time it's going to be a fantasy genre of some kind. They don't like realistic fiction or contemporary or historic or anything like that. They go for fantasy. A trend I've observed. I don't know the reasons behind it or why. Like,
and it would kind of make sense that those who are raised on Harry Potter and the things that came out after it are like, yeah, we still want more as adults.
Right.
And now we're raising our kids on it. And so.
Right. Yeah. And so now, like, a lot, like, there's so much, and it's so many different genres, like we were talking about. Like, there's the romantasy, and then there's historical fantasy,
Mhm.
and then, there's the high fantasy and low fantasy. Like, there's all ones, and for adults and for young adults and for middle grade, and for,
Yeah.
there's like, for everybody, there's a
Mhm.
fantasy book for you. I think fantasy's popularity now is mostly due to Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings movies, both of which I believe came out in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I think
remember
you're
watching
right.
those in theaters. So
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, because I think the Harry Potter books came out in the 90s, right?
Mhm.
And the books.
Well, the Harry Potter books came out in the 90s, and
Yeah.
then the movies for both came out in the 2000s.
Okay, that makes sense. Michael J.
Because when I
Sullivan's age.
graduated from high school, only the first two Harry Potter books were out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
or movies. Sorry, not books.
Yeah. Michael J. Sullivan's Age of Myth or Theft of Swords are good places to begin too. Small world, small cast of characters, world revealed slowly. Yeah, we were talking about that. That's helpful.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed looking through my list is it's helpful if you start with like middle grade or YA, like if you're not used to reading fantasy at all, just because it can give you an idea of what the different genres look like. So you can get an idea of what you like before you try to delve into the adults that are maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit denser.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Morgan says millennials and Gen Zers just grew up on it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
my kids definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Not me, because I'm that border generation that's like Gen X / millennial. Because I was born in 1980, and so I was just before, like, I was a teenager by the time, and so my reading tastes were already fully developed, and Harry Potter just didn't interest me. But I watched it. It's like everybody loved it.
Yeah.
My mom was
I
one of
grew up
those.
in one of the households where we weren't allowed to read it. So
Yeah.
I didn't read it. I didn't start reading them until my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
Because by that point I was like, well, I'm 18 now. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents didn't like anything fantasy either. But by the time Harry Potter came out, I was, I read whatever I wanted to. I just didn't want to. My mom was one of those, didn't understand fantasy. She could not suspend reality. My dad liked sci-fi. I really don't know how he felt about fantasy. Yeah. It's not that I can't suspend reality. Like, I don't know. I just prefer books that live in reality. But, not that I don't enjoy fantasy now and then. It's just I'm drawn to, if I'm looking at the stack of books on my shelf, I'm drawn to the ones that are, realistic, particularly if they're historical. So I was also going to ask you about like series. So I know that like a lot of times fantasy involves like big series. That's another reason why, because I'm not a big series person. Like, I don't want to start a book if I feel like I have to read like 20 other books that go with it, or even 5. Like 2 or 3 would be fine. But it seems to me like a lot of fantasy has huge series with 5 to 10 books or more. Like Brandon Sanderson, even Harry Potter has how many? Like 5? 7, yeah. That just seems like a huge investment to me. And that doesn't appeal to me personally. But do you like those big long series, or do you prefer like standalones?
I like the big long series. I'm just terrible at keeping up with them.
Yeah. Yeah. See, but, I would be the same.
But it's one of those, like, I thought about, because I'm like, I used to be able to finish series and trying to figure out why I can't now. Honestly, I blame BookTube.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been watching BookTube since like 2015.
Right.
And so I think a lot of it is, the shiny new object. The new book is coming out.
Yes.
And so I start all the new stuff and I don't get to the old stuff. Yeah. So I think that's probably a lot of it. And I see a lot of people on BookTube that say the same thing. I'm great at starting series. I'm terrible at finishing them. And I think that's why, because there's so many new books and new series coming out.
Right.
We go for the shiny object instead of what we've been working on.
Yes.
Especially because it's hard to review later books and series when you can't talk much about them without spoilers.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I think that makes it harder too.
Yeah, for sure. My mother-in-law basically told me the other day that fantasy was sinful. I tried to tell her even Jesus told parables, which were stories to explain deeper truths. And then she says, I was trying to explain to her that people use fantasy to share the gospel sometimes. Yeah, see, I have encountered this attitude as well, like that fantasy is sinful. I even was talking to someone one time who felt like fairy tales were sinful. And I think because of the magic element. And so I was trying to give a perspective, very much like you said, Jamie, how even fairy tales can be, they have elements of the gospel in them, particularly certain fairy tales. Like Sleeping Beauty is one that has very, very strong gospel elements in it. And Beauty and the Beast does as well. Cinderella, when I watched I've heard the story, like hundreds of times in my life, and I've seen the Disney Cinderella. But when I watched the live acting Cinderella that they made some years back, that was one of the first ones that they remade. It just struck me so much how in that fairy tale, Cinderella is us, and we are like I feel like her being covered with the ashes from the fireplace is like symbolic of sin. Like we're covered in sin and we're poor and um, in need of someone to save us. We're downtrodden, we're oppressed, etc., etc. And then, um, and then the prince is Jesus, and salvation, the gospel, is like a real life fairy tale. Like Jesus is the hero that saves us from our depravity, from our despondency, from our sin, from all of that, and gives to us all of these things that we could never get on our own and that we don't deserve, and that he just lavishes on us like the prince, chooses Cinderella for his bride, like Jesus chose the church for his bride, completely undeserving and for no good reason. Anyway, I was like that's the gospel right there. Like Cinderella is the gospel story, like beautifully illustrated. And it just hit me when I was watching that movie. I remember watching it and just like I was even in tears because I was like, that is so beautiful, such a beautiful representation of the gospel there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fantasy can be the same way. Bye, Dia. So yes, the shiny object. I also struggle finishing it series. Oh, by the hi. I didn't even know you were here. I also struggle finishing series, losing interest while waiting on the next one from the library. Yeah. So it's better like if you can start one and the other books are already written. That's helpful too. The 2015 live action Cinderella is incredible. Yeah, I want to watch it again actually because I think I only watched it that one time and I was like, oh, that was really good. It was just so.
I need to watch that one.
Yeah, I think what I loved was it was just so the cinematography was really beautiful and the acting was great and it just brought the story to life for me. It was the best of the remakes. That I did for the most part really like the Beauty and the Beast one too. But I haven't bothered to watch all of them because at some point it's like, okay, well, you keep doing this.
I think Beauty and the Beast is the only one that we've actually watched. And I appreciate that they put in like her mother's backstory. So we actually know what happened with her.
Right.
The hard part my husband and I had is we felt like, especially the musical numbers.
Yeah.
We're like, all of these are either the animated one was as good or it was better. We didn't feel like there were any of the musical numbers where the live action was actually better.
Yeah.
And so we're like, yeah, we'll just stick with the animated.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to beat it.
Yeah. And see, the thing is like we grew up on Beauty and the Beast, the animated one, whereas Cinderella was like old. So like, by the time I came around, like Cinderella was an old Disney movie. So like I watched it, but it was an old one. Whereas Beauty and the Beast came out when I was younger and, we loved it and we loved everything about it. I had the whole thing memorized. So yeah, it's a little bit, I think it needs more distance. To be remade adequately. Although I will say I did like the remake of Aladdin also. I thought that was pretty good actually. I actually enjoyed that one. So anyway, I was going to say, so but the conversation about fantasy and fairy tales or whatever. I feel like the advantage of fantasy is that you can really explore things in a way that you cannot possibly explore them in a realistic setting. Because in a novel that's set in a realistic world, you have to live within the confines of reality. And that limits how far you can go, what you can explore as far as what is possible. And so I feel like the advantage of fantasy is that you don't have those constraints, particularly if you are writing a story set in its own world. Like you can make anything happen that you want to happen, and it doesn't have to be realistic. So you can explore a wide variety of themes and topics or whatever. And I think that's also the appeal of fantasy, because the imagination is unlimited. You could just go wherever you want to go with it, and explore. And which is part of why I feel like I really should love fantasy. Like part of me feels like I really should love it. And I don't know. There's just like this disconnection there. Let's see. Jamie says, I have not watched any of the live action remakes except for Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast. I lost faith in Disney about that time. Yeah. I mean, I can understand that. I haven't watched a lot of movies at all. Not on a regular basis of late.
I go back to the older movies.
Yes. Yeah. Or what my kids think are older movies.
Well, some of them, they were older to me when I grew up with them.
Yes.
Because they came out when my parents were kids. But then, there's the movies that are, they're old to the kids, but they're not old to me.
Right. Yes. So. Yeah. There are some movies that, were made when I was younger. And then when my kids watch them, they're like, this is old. Like, it is not that old. But when you see especially, so I was born in 1980. So some of the movies that were made in the early 80s, like the video quality is quite poor. I guess probably depending on the budget they had to work with, because some of them were fine, but some of them, like, you watch it, you're like, wow, this was made when I was a kid. How old am I again? I'm from the 1900s.
Well, it's like I even look at like the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did this movie become so popular? Like, you just look at the quality of the first one, and it's like clearly they didn't have the biggest budget ever.
Right.
You know.
And that was like 1970.
77, I think.
Yeah, it was the late
76, 77, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but,
that's crazy.
But like you look at that compared to the one that came out in 99.
Right.
It's a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, even like Home Alone, which is a movie from when I was younger that my kids actually do like. But that one is actually pretty good. Like it doesn't come across as really old.
No.
Jamie says, I have a sweet spot for movies because I grew up without TV. We didn't even go to the movies. Then I watched a lot for many years. Yeah, I didn't have a TV when I was very young. We got one at some point. And we did not go to the movie theater ever. And what we watched on the TV was largely news and Rescue 911. Sometimes we would watch The Cosby Show, I think. Occasionally we would watch Full House, but we didn't watch a lot on TV. And I watch nothing but YouTube. Yeah, pretty much. It's as much as I can do to keep up with my YouTube friends. Like, like I have this. So in my class at my school, at my school with all my music grades, I do March Music Madness, and every year I have a theme, and we watch video clips of performances along the theme. This year was American composers because 250th anniversary. And John Williams was one of them. And so, speaking of Star Wars, and so John Williams won the whole thing. Spoiler alert. All the kids. Yeah, I know, right? He has an amazing, incredible body of work, like astounding, actually. And as I was like, I already knew that, and I was already very familiar with a lot of it. But one thing I discovered was that he actually wrote, I think in 1970, the soundtrack for a TV version of Jane Eyre. And I was like, wait a second. There's a Jane Eyre version I haven't seen yet. I thought I had seen all the Jane Eyres that are out there. Because like some years back, I did a marathon of all the Jane Eyre adaptations that I could find. And I was like, I have not seen that Jane Eyre adaptation. So it's on YouTube. And it was made for TV, so it's shorter. It's not like a really long movie. But it's been, I still have the tab up on my browser. I just don't have time to watch it. It's been up there for a month, and I really want to watch it. It's like 1 hour, and I haven't done it yet. But I want to. 1977 for the first Star Wars movie. So you were right, actually. You good guess. Also known as the fourth Star Wars movie. Is that like Narnia? Which one came first? Which one should you read?
Technically, it's episode 4, even though it's the first movie that came out.
Yes. So. That's crazy. While I watch YouTube, Thomas the Tank Engine, some guy playing Mario games without talking over them. My toddler picks what's on the TV. Okay, that is a trend I don't get. My boys do the same thing. They watch people playing video games. What? Like, why? Like, that's straight up brain rot right there. Like,
yeah.
Just don't even. But yes, I remember the Thomas the Tank Engine days. My son had all of the engines, like a lot of them. And he also loved Cars, the movie. So he had all of the cars and he played with them endlessly. Love it. I miss those days a little bit. Same, Morgan. I was 2 when the first Star Wars released. I wasn't born yet.
My dad was overseas when it came out because he was in the Navy at the time.
Oh.
And he came home and his best friend was like, we have to go see this movie. And he's like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of it. Because unfortunately in the 1970s, they didn't keep the Navy very well, or the military in general, very well informed of what was going on in the States that didn't have to do with them.
Right.
Their job.
Yes.
So,
and there was no internet. So,
no. So he had not heard of it and had no clue what it was.
That's funny.
So it's like, I know roughly when it came out, but
yeah,
not with the exact date.
That's funny. You know, my parents' first date was the premiere. I mean, in like the fact that it was like the first opening day or whatever release of The Sound of Music in theaters in the 1960s. So I always thought that was really cool. Yeah. That was their first date. I might have been born the year the first prequel came out.
Thanks for that, Morgan. I was in middle school.
Well, way to make me feel old.
Right. So, this conversation took a turn.
Yes, it took a turn. So, are you considered a millennial, Morgan? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think she's probably, I'm guessing she's older Gen Z, but I don't know for sure. I don't know exactly where the cutoff is.
Yeah, I don't know where the breakdown is.
I know it's somewhere in the late 90s, but I don't know where.
I know my older son is Gen Z, but I think he might be on the tail end of it because he always tries to say that his brother is Gen Alpha and is not the same generation as him.
Yeah.
I mean, they're only 2 years apart, but
yeah. I don't even know where my kids fall. I haven't looked.
Yeah.
Because they were young enough when I was hearing about Gen Alpha. I'm like, they might not even be Gen Alpha. They might be the next generation down. So,
I know, right?
So I was like, just wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, she is Gen Z. Yeah. Yeah, because I think you had to be like old enough to experience the millennium to be considered a millennial.
Y2K.
Yes, Y2K.
Yeah.
Crazy days.
I actually experienced that on the road. That was fun.
Oh, that is fun. I was living in Russia at the time. That was fun.
We were moving.
Oh,
halfway
wow.
across the country.
Oh, wow.
We left at the end of December from California, and we got to Missouri on January 1st.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's crazy. The cutoff is somewhere between me and my brother-in-law, who was born in 1995. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I was thinking the cutoff is somewhere like 96, 97, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I just know technically because I watched a couple videos yesterday, technically I missed the cutoff for Zennial because it ends in 85.
Okay.
But I'm like, okay, but my parents are the ones that like, the things that, that were new, my parents got them a couple years after they came out. So I'm like, I still very much fit into a lot of the mindset of the Zennials.
Right.
I missed it for 1 year.
Right.
So I'm like, no, I'm still a Zennial.
Right.
Like, I'm going to get grandfathered into that group.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I have strong Gen X tendencies for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I have millennial aspects too, but
yeah.
like the whole, like, I struggle with compassion, I guess, maybe is the biggest thing. I just don't care. Like, you're going to be fine. Like, you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. And as a teacher, like, I've observed how, like, because I've been teaching most of my adult life, like, each subsequent grade of children, I mean, to be perfectly frank, they have less and less emotional resiliency, and they're like less and less capable of handling even the smallest thing. And when I say the smallest thing, I mean it. I'm not just exaggerating. Like, they can't handle any bumps in their little roads. And mm-hmm. the Gen X side of me is just like, what is your problem? Like, what is,
mm-hmm.
Just get over it. Just get over it. You're okay. You're really okay. I promise. You're going to be, I don't know how we got there from fantasy, but anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for joining me, Charlene, and whoever is watching after the fact. Just, you can keep leaving comments and read the comments that are here and keep joining the conversation. And Jamie says, "Amen." And yeah, sorry, yeah, I know that you're with me, Jamie. Oh goodness, you experience it too. Although you have mostly older students, you get the high schoolers. I do teach high schoolers as well. I have as far as 9th grade this year, but yeah, those kiddos.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. Well, it was wonderful to chat with everybody and with you, Charlene, especially. Thank you for all of the recommendations. Some of those I'm going to definitely check out and read sooner rather than later. So, bye, everybody. We'll see ya.